So today we're talking about how to choose the right camera for you. It's not really about the camera, it's about the person behind the camera. Nope. This will do. So if you're new here, I just want to say hi. My name is Enrico and welcome to my channel. So the first thing to consider when choosing the right camera for you is what you're actually trying to do. Are you mainly about photography? Are you leaning towards videography? Or you do a little bit of both? Because nowadays there's a lot of very good cameras available in the market, and knowing what you're trying to do will determine the amount of money you need to spend for that camera. And that is why the second most important thing to consider is also your budget, because it will be highly dependent on features and lenses available. Now, with that point of view, there are types of camera sensors you need to know, and the most common ones are full frame sensor and APS-C sensor. A full frame sensor is 24 by 36 millimeter, while the APS-C is 21.1 millimeter by 16.7. That is why it's called a crop sensor. And for those people who are starting out, they tend to choose the APS-C lineup because it's more affordable and the lens is available. I'm a Sony shooter. I'm very familiar with their lineup, but this applies with Canon, Fuji, Lumix, Panasonic. Lumix, Panasonic are the same. If you're interested, I will link down below the APS-C lineup of Sony. These are my affiliate links, so I will get a kickback for this channel. So what about full frame sensor? The reason why it's more expensive because it comes with a lot of benefit if you go full frame. I'll give you an example. 1. Full frame sensor performs better in low light compared to APS-C sensor because of its sensor size. Why? Because the larger the sensor size, the more space for bigger pixel, hence less noise. 2. Bigger sensors means more detail. Why? Because the larger the sensor, the more pixel you can fit in that sensor, and that is why some cameras can go up to 48 megapixel, 60 megapixel, or even 120 megapixel, and it performs well with photography. 3rd, better shallow depth of field, because in most cases, full frame sensor have a higher depth of view than APS-C due to its crop nature. I don't think it's a deal breaker though. 4th, better dynamic range. It refers on how well your camera gets and retains dark and bright areas of your image. The 5th one, it's easier to understand focal length, because for an APS-C crop sensor, you will have to multiply it by 1.5. So when you have a 35 millimeter, it's around 52 millimeter in true focal length. While the full frame sensor has a factor of 1:1, means 35 millimeter is 35 millimeter. Now, the most asked question is, does megapixel matter? In my opinion, yes, but not everything. I mainly do video and a little bit of photography, so it really depends on what you're doing. Now, more megapixel means more pixel resolution, hence higher quality of image. And it's better to have a higher megapixel in photography because you can technically zoom and crop without losing too much details. For videography, on the other side, you need to keep in mind that 1 pixel equals to 1 resolution. So to record a 4K video, a 3840 by 2160 resolution, in perspective, you only need 8.3 megapixel. In this case, I have the Sony a7S III and it has 12 megapixel. Another element of megapixel is the higher the megapixel, the higher the chances to pick up noise in low light situation, and vice versa. And that's why photography cameras have a higher megapixel count compared to video cameras. But as you can see, there are cameras that can do both, have higher megapixel and can do 4K or even 8K resolution, which is amazing, but it has some drawbacks. And these are large file sizes. So your 128 or 256 gig won't last you very long. And with large file sizes, it tends to have a sticky playback. It also performs poor in low light situation in some cases, and it's prone to overheating. Canon R5. Just kidding. Well, I actually have the Sony a7 IV and I recorded a 4K 422 10-bit 60 FPS and it overheated on me around 30 minutes, so we're even? So the next thing to consider is lens availability and cost. Before jumping into a brand and their ecosystem, you need to know what lenses they offer, its performance, and how much it'll cost you. Also, brands have their own mounts. For Sony, it's E mount. For Canon, it's RF mount.
For Lumix, it's L mount. For Leica, it's M mount. For Nikon, it's Z mount.
And there's so much more. In my case, I use Sony, and they allow third-party manufacturers to use their mounts such as Sigma and Tamron. These companies are budget-friendly alternatives unless you're willing to lose one kidney. So I highly recommend doing your research with your brand's lineup and do a price comparison. So ahead of time, you know what you're getting into, because changing your ecosystem is tough. Rough, tough. And of course, another thing to consider is tech specs. For photography, what really matters is the megapixel, the FPS continuous shooting, RAW files, and fast shutter speed for wildlife or sports photography. And for videography, it's the video format. Can it do 1080p, 4K, 8K, as well as bit depth? Is it 8-bit, 10-bit, 12-bit? Also the color ratio such as 400, 420, 422, and 444. That was good. How about FPS? Can it do 24 FPS, 30 FPS, 60 FPS, or 120 FPS? In most cases, 60 FPS is the sweet spot for a lot of you guys. And lastly, picture profile. Can it do log profile for color grading later on? So the combination of these features can really affect the price point of the camera. Moving to physical features like flip out screen. Do you really need a fully articulating screen? Maybe a viewfinder, because some cameras don't have a viewfinder and fully dependent on the screen itself. Next, maybe screen quality, so you can monitor your exposure properly. How about custom buttons to quickly navigate your settings? And one feature that most people tend to overlook is how does the camera feel in your hand? Because if you're gonna spend that much money, it better feels good in your hand. With all the research done, another aspect that people tend to overlook when choosing the right camera for them is enjoyment. Ask yourself, does this camera excite you? Does it makes you geek out with its text and capabilities? Because if you enjoy this camera, it makes the learning process easier and even hone your skills around it. So overall, when choosing the right camera for you, there's going to be a difference between beginner, intermediate, and professional. And for this video, for beginners, at least you have an idea before jumping in and investing your hard-earned money. So that's it for me. I really hope you got something from this video. Hit the like button if you find this video helpful. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always, I really appreciate you being here. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. And oh, don't forget to check my links below. These are my affiliate links. It will give me a kickback for this channel. And so yeah, capiche?